position at the level of of the legislation. I so submit in accordance with Rule 49E9 of the Rules of Procedure. I will not put any question on the motion.
Members' Bill will resume the second reading debate on Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, Chairman of the Bills Committee on the Bill, will address the Council on the committee's report. Mr. Wu. Thank you, President. In my capacity as Chairman of the Bills Committee of the Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill, I submit the report of the Bills Committee and report the deliberation of the Bills Committee. The bill was introduced by Mr. Ronald Chan to provide for the transfer of the retail banking business and private banking business of the Hong Kong branch of the Bank of Communications to a new subsidiary, Bank of Communication Hong Kong, incorporated in Hong Kong. The Bills Committee notes that apart from two amendments, the bill is basically the same as the one introduced by Mr. Ng Leung Sing in the last legislative term. The amendments will not cause additional business transfer. The Bills Committee notes that given that locally incorporated banks are required to observe the local requirements in relation to corporate governance, capital loss exposure limits, subsidiarization of the Bank of Communication will enable the Hong Kong Monetary Authority to more effectively carry out its duty to protect depositors of the bank under the Banking Ordinance. The Bank of Communication Hong Kong branch has advised that a number of initiatives taken forward by the mainland, in particular the development of the Belt and Road Initiative and the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area will bring about new business opportunities to Hong Kong. Bank of Communications will continue to hire new staff for both its branch and subsidiary in Hong Kong to expand its local business. The Bills Committee has sought assessment of the impact of the proposed business transfer on tax revenue. Bank of Communication Hong Kong branch has advised that for the purpose of the Inland Revenue Ordinance, Bank of Communication Hong Kong is the same person-in-law as Bank of Communication Hong Kong branch with regard to relevant business under the transfer on and from the appointed date for effecting the bill. As such, there should be no implication on tax payable. As to whether the Hong Kong branch has discretion to, out of commercial consideration, retain high-value accounts of retail banking and private banking business and exclude them from the proposed business transfer, Bank of Communication Hong Kong branch has advised that customers are classified when they open accounts with the Bank of Communication Hong Kong, and the scope of business to be transferred is well defined in the bill and will not capture business beyond the intended scope. The Bills Committee emphasized that the bank should give sufficient notice to customers for them to consider taking appropriate actions. The bank has advised that in June 2015, the Bank of Communication Hong Kong branch has issued a formal announcement through the website of Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited of the proposed business transfer. Upon passage of the bill, there will be a 2-month notification period. The Hong Kong branch will issue letters to notify its existing members. Mr. Ronald Chan has proposed CSAs to replace the Insurance Companies Ordinance with Insurance Ordinance. The Bills Committee has no objection and will not propose any CSA. Mr. Kenneth Leung, under Rule 84 of the ROP, I want to declare that I have direct and indirect interest. I will speak, but I will not vote on the CSA or the third reading.
The Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill seeks to provide for the transfer of the activities, assets and liabilities of the Bank of Communications Company Limited Hong Kong branch to the wholly owned subsidiary within the BCom Group. So under this bill, all the activities, assets and liabilities, including contracts and including employment contracts, will be transferred to a subsidiary locally set up in Hong Kong. The bill also deals with MPF records, books and documents and matters relating to tax. Since Hong Kong has been returned to China, we have dealt with about 24 bills on mergers. All these merger bills have to do with financial institutions such as banks or the Hong Kong Exchange. And in terms of these merger bills, 12 of them had to do with private mergers. Now, we proceed with the merger by way of a private bill because Hong Kong has a common law system and we are not affected by any merger and acquisition laws in the civil law jurisdictions. That is why the merger can only be effected by private legislation. And a merger or acquisition involves transfer of business from one company to another, or to transfer the business from a company to another company newly incorporated, or to transfer the business of a branch of a parent company to a subsidiary company. These bills affect private institutions. Now, I can give you some examples. We had the Bank of China merger in 2010 and also 2011, Bank of East Asia merger, and then 2013 Daoheng Bank merger bill. About these merger bills, they are by and large identical in form and format. Of course, because of the unique features of some financial institutions, some details may be different. But as far as the existing legislation is concerned, Section or Part 13, Third Division, Section 678 to 686 of the Companies Ordinance provides merger or group restructuring, amalgamation of companies within the same group. However, as far as the principal legislation in Hong Kong is concerned, we do not have anything to provide for the group restructure or the restructuring and outside the group. I think that if necessary, the Hong Kong SAR government should consider whether we should standardize the approach by enacting a piece of legislation that can deal with M&As in general, so that when we scrutinize private merger bills, it can save us some time. We do have a very tight legislative timetable, and the Council's time is limited. Out of the 24 merger bills, 12 of them are private bills. So imagine how much time have these bills taken up our time. Well, as the International Financial Center and as the legislature in Hong Kong, we are responsible for enacting legislation to effect the the merger of private companies. Sometimes the mergers may be effected not out of necessity, because sometimes maybe there has been a merger in Europe and a similar merger has to be effected in Hong Kong, but then we do not have a mechanism to allow a true merger of these companies. And that is why we rely on the members' private bill so as to fulfill this objective, so that comparing to European countries or countries adopting a civil law system, we can effect a similar merger locally. So in the long run, I think the government should consider with the need to enact a merger legislation. And these are my views on this Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited merger bill. I'm not going to vote on this bill. I hope that members here would support this merger bill. I so submit. Are there any members who wish to speak? Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. Mr. President, through to implement a bank merger acquisition, it can allow enhancement of competitiveness and enhancement of service quality and to promote long-term development of the banking industry. We believe that the merger bill fulfills this objective. The Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited is a locally incorporated subsidiary. It will facilitate the business in Hong Kong. It also bolsters Hong Kong's status as an international financial center.
As regards the format, this is done in the form of private members' bill. I want to point out that for mergers of banks registered in Hong Kong, usually the merger is achieved in the form of private members' bills. We have actually done 10 such bills so far. This has worked effectively. The government thinks that this is appropriate. I now invite Mr. Chun-ying to reply. Thereafter, the debate will come to a close. Mr. Chun-ying. Thank you, President. According to the Banking Ordinance Cap 155, if a merger is to be carried out for banks in Hong Kong, then the assets and liabilities should be transferred to an entity or the new entity to be formed after the merger. For locally registered banks, usually this is done through a private members' bill in this council. As members have said, in the past 3 decades, we have carried out many bank mergers in the form of private members' bills. And I thank Mr. Kenneth Leung in explaining past examples. Through this form of transfer, it is easily understood by clients and relevant parties. The Bank of Communication Hong Kong Limited is a subsidiary established by the Bank of Communication. It has also been licensed by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority as a bank. The relevant assets and liabilities will be transferred to the new entity, i.e. the Bank of Communication Hong Kong Limited, and the private banking business will also be transferred to the new entity. As a independently registered bank in Hong Kong, it will have its own board of directors, and the protection to clients will be equivalent to that enjoyed by banks of other local registered banks. The Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited merger bill is a private members' bill sponsored by me. This bill is not controversial, and this is also in line with the development in the banking industry and conforms to the overall banking policy. In terms of implementation, the Bank of Communications will make sure that the transfer would involve a minimal implications for the clients. There's no need for the clients to sign any paper for the transfer to take effect. And all the employees will continue to be employed. Their accrual benefits, including the annual leaves and leave benefits, will not be affected. On the 5th of December 2016, the members of the Electoral Panel on Financial Affairs were consulted, and on the 21st and 28th of April 2017, the bill was gazetted, and it received its first reading at the electoral meeting of 24th of May 2016, and at the House Committee on the 26th of May 2017, members agreed to form a Bills Committee, and the Bills Committee has scrutinized the bill. And what needs to be amended is that the reference to the bank insurance companies ordinance will now be substituted by insurance ordinance. I thank all the Bills Committee members for their views so that we can successfully complete the scrutiny. Now it's at its final stage before its passage. The Bank of Communication and I myself hope that with the support of members, the bill and the CSA can be passed smoothly. I now put a question to you, and that is that the Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill be read the second time. With those in favour, please raise their hands. Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority, respectively, of each of the two groups of members. That is, those returned by FCC and those returned by GC through direct election who are present. I declare the motion passed. Bank of Communications Hong Kong Limited Merger Bill.
Council is now in committee. Members may refer to the appendix to the script